guys, what's going on? It's Rose here, bringing you guys the draft analysis for the PPL Flair division. I am your coach of the Las Vegas Road Toms. Real quick, I want to give a huge shout out to Jack Gravy for inviting me into this season. This is somewhat of a D-League, not really a D-League, it's like a subdivision type of situation. But regardless, I'm super excited for the opportunity, and I couldn't have this opportunity without you guys and your support. Without your support, I would not be in this position, and I'm super grateful for for you guys. So thank you to you guys. I also want to give a huge shout out to my front office. They helped me with drafting a lot of this team and some changes that we made post-draft as well, which I can kind of talk about as well. But yeah, huge thank you to them, and thank you to Jack and the whole PPL admin team for bringing me in this season. I'm super excited, and let's go ahead, not waste any more time. Let's get straight into this draft analysis. With the first pick of our team, we're in the 6th pick. We decided to take Baxcalibur. This thing got so much better in the DLC. I haven't used Baxcalibur since DDL Season 1, all the way back in November or something of last year. So it's been a very long time since I used it. It was right around the time when Scarlet and Violet first came out, when I used it last. And it got better. It got Scale Shot in this in the DLC. Which makes Loaded Dice Baxcalibur just so much better. This thing is a demon. This thing's a monster. With Icicle Spear and Scale Shot, Loaded Dice is amazing. It gets access to things like Iron Head and Earthquake to, for a little bit of coverage there. It also gets some fighting coverage with things like Body Press and Brick Break. But yeah, huge monster, and I'm super excited to use it. This thing also gets access to things like Dragon Dance and Sword Stance for setup, which is great. Because we can do Sword Stance Scale Shot shenanigans, or we can just run Dragon Dance with Glaive Rush and Icicle Crash and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm super excited to use Baxcalibur here. Definitely excited to see what it can do for us in this, because it did a lot for me in DDL. Next up, with our second pick, we're taking Urshifu Rapid Strike, a mod I quite literally have not used since I have not used it since it was released all the way back in Gen 8. I've never used Urshifu Rapid Strike. I believe I've used Single Strike, but I've never used the Rapid Strike. And this thing actually got significantly better in this generation. I got access to things like Trailblaze and Sword Stance, which is amazing. It gets amazing coverage. The Fighting Water Stab is really, really nice. Because even though Baxcalibur does get Earthquake, it does tend to struggle against bulky steals, and especially if it's a dual-type steel. And with the coverage that Urshifu gets, its fighting stab, it's able to break through most of the steel types that Baxcalibur can't, and I think it's a very good offensive pairing for this. It does get access to things like U-turn as well, which is great for momentum to bring in Baxcalibur to kind of break in if we want to. We now have two options that can easily take over a game if they're not taken care of. So that's gonna make it to where opponents have to prep for both very, very, very heavily, and not every team can do that. So definitely gonna try and take advantage of that this season. Super excited to use Urshifu. I've always wanted to use the Rapid Strike form, never got the chance to use it, and here we are. We're gonna be using it here. Next up, we grabbed Slowking. I honestly wanted. There were so many things I wanted. I wanted Galarian Slowking at first. Which got taken, which is unfortunate, because I wanted to get the snow to kind of, set back into Baxcalibur, give it that defense boost, and give it a better chance to be like a bulky setup mon if I need to. But regular Slowking, phenomenal mon. We are running double water, but that's okay, because the water types we have do two very different things. Urshifu clicks buttons, and Slowking clicks chili reception. That is its job. That is the majority of its job, but it's also a really good special wall. I believe it got Slack Off back. I'm not entirely sure about that, but with Regenerator as an ability, it's Water Psychic Stab, getting coverage, things like Ice Beam. I believe it gets Power Gem and Thunderbolt, and it gets a ton of cool coverage. Super excited to use Slowking as well. I think it's going to pair really, really well with our Baxcalibur, and I'm super excited to use it. But yeah, let's go ahead. Let's get into Mon number 4, where we're grabbing Ursaluna in the 4th round. Back a couple months ago, this thing was a round 1 pick, guaranteed, no questions asked. This thing was phenomenal, and it was a demon. It's kind of gotten power crept recently, so no one really wanted to deal with it. But with its natural bulk and normal ground stab being phenomenal, having very few switch-ins, I mean, this thing is a demon. It gets, it gets access to relays. We can also run some Trick Room shenanigans with Slow King, because Ursaluna is slow enough to where it can take advantage of that Trick Room. I think it's like base 50 or 55 speed, something like that. It's very slow. And it has, I think, it has one of the highest attack stats in the game. I think it's 140 or 145. It is the highest, like, it has the highest attack stat for a Guts Mon, which is phenomenal. But you don't even have to, like, run Flame Orb Guts. You can run Assault Vest, which has definitely become more prominent in the last few months. But yeah, this thing is phenomenal. Gets a ton of coverage. Gets things like Ice Punch, obviously getting Earthquake and Facade and those kind of moves. But this thing, I'm super excited to use it. We did use it briefly in the WPF. I only had it for a few games though, because I was a 3 games left takeover coach. So I didn't have, a ton of time to use it, so we're going to be using it here, and hopefully we're going to be able to bring it to some games and do some damage with it. I'm super excited to use it. Next up, we're going to be bringing in Grimmsnarl, which this was not originally the Mon I wanted to use. I wanted Galarian Weezing, and I was going to take it either here, or I was potentially going to take it in that last round instead of Ursaluna. But I decided to take Ursaluna over it, and then like a few picks before me, one of my good buddies decided that they wanted Galarian Weezing instead. So this is our consolation prize, but Grimmsnarl is phenomenal. Getting access to screens, Parting Shot, gets Thunder Wave as well. Its natural Dark Fairy Stab is amazing. Not too many things want to switch into it. It does get things like Calm Mind and Bulk Up for setup if we wanted to do like some sort of bulky setup variant. Access to Prankster as its main ability, but it can run Frisk as well. Like this thing does so much. It's very versatile. It's a great utility mon. But it can be like a bulky setup sweeper, like I said. Gets access to things like Drain Punch as well, which is phenomenal for it to break through those steals that otherwise it has a hard time dealing with. Which, to be fair, we're not really worried about steel types with Ursaluna and Urshifu and Earthquake Excalibur. We're not super worried about it. And Flamethrower Slowking. People forget that it gets Flamethrower and Fire Blast and stuff like that. But it's phenomenal. So. Definitely excited to use Grimmsnarl here. I've used it a couple times in the past, and it's done me pretty well. So I'm definitely excited to see what we're able to do with it this season. Next up, we're grabbing Bramblegast. This was not originally the pick. Originally, I grabbed regular Decidueye, but in the grace period, I decided to drop it for Bramblegast. Having a Rapid Spinner is definitely beneficial. I think it's more beneficial over having a Defogger because you're not getting rid of your own hazards. Plus, this thing is, it is bulky enough. It is decently bulky. Gets access to spikes. It got Poltergeist in the DLC, which is amazing. It gives it an actual Ghost Stab. Like, it gives it proper Ghost Stab. Getting access to Leech Seed and Strength Sap. Gets Power Whip. Like I said, spikes. Gets Rapid Spin. This thing is very, very good. It's a really solid budget hazard setter and hazard remover. I think I ended up paying like 5 points for it, which is not that much in retrospect when you think about it. When it got buffed so heavily with Poltergeist, and it's already I think like base 90 something attack, which is decent enough for a low tier mon. But yeah, love Bramblegast. I used it in my original playthrough of the game, and I'm super excited to use it here. Next up, we're grabbing Talonflame. Talonflame is a mon I want to say. If I have used it, I did use it once back all the way in like Gen 7 when I first started drafting. And it's definitely fallen off since then, but it's still, it gives me great top end speed at 126. That's really the only like stat that's super, super impressive. Everything else is in like the 80s for the most part. I think there's a couple of stats that might be in like the low 90s, but for the most part, most of its other stats are in the 80s. But getting like a fast U-turn off, Flare Blitz and Brave Bird definitely hurts no matter what you are. Getting access to Swords Dance as well is great for it. It's a fast defogger as well. Gets access to Roost. This thing is also, it's a really nice utility mon to kind of pair with Grimmsnarl and Bramblegast. Like that's kind of like our utility core for the most part. And this thing, it is nice that because we were able to outpace most things with our speed and hit them pretty hard with a Flare Blitz or a Brave Bird. So yeah, super excited to use this. And I'm excited to see where it goes. Next up, we're grabbing our Terra Captain, or one of our Terra Captains, rather. So how the PPL works is you take a Terra, you draft a Mon, and then each, like certain Mons are banned from terastallizing, and the ones that can terastallize, they have a separate Terra point value from their normal, like, point value. So Lycanroc Day was, I think, like 7-8 points, but its Terra point value was like 15. To kind of give you guys an idea. And how it works is you pick one stab and then two non-stab, or like you pick one stab and then two of like any other type. So if it's a dual type Mon, you can pick both your stabs and then a third type. I went with Rock, Fighting, and Flying. Getting Terra Rock Excel Rocks is amazing. You know, Terra Rock Stone Edges as well. It hits super, super hard. There's a ton of Mons that don't want to switch into it too well. And those that do don't want to get hit with the Terra Fighting close combat. That thing hits really, really hard. And something that this thing struggles with is other, like, fighting types. Not other fighting types, excuse me, just regular fighting types. So getting Terra Flying gives me an ability to hit those fighting types for super effective damage, if they're not able to be hit by something else that we get. So yeah, Terra Flying on this thing is going to do some decent damage. This also helps us deal with grass types, which Lycanroc otherwise struggles with because it doesn't get anything to hit those otherwise. So it's definitely something that we're going to be, able to use. Getting things like Life Orb. You can also loaded dice Rock Blast with this thing, which is kind of nice. But yeah, super excited to use Lycanroc. I think it's going to be an absolute demon. We're not having Sand. I don't feel like I need Sand with what this thing does, with its natural speed, its natural attack stat. I think it does fine enough on its own as a Terra Captain. Now, if I didn't have a Terra Captain, I probably would have drafted Sand. I might not have drafted it, period. But it's definitely, definitely something that I'm really excited to use. Absolutely love Lycanroc. I've always loved Lycanroc. This is now the second draft where we have one. We have Dusk in our IBL draft. Now we have Day in this one. Maybe we draft Lycanroc Midnight at some point. Who knows? But yeah, super excited to use Lycanroc. It's phenomenal. It's also a stealth rocker. Our team does not set up hazards very well. Our hazard setting is Bramblegust and Lycanroc right now, which isn't great, but quite frankly, I don't need to set up too many hazards. In my opinion, I think my team is able to break through most teams without needing hazards, just because of the natural attack stat of most of my Mons, and the natural power that they have. So I'm not too worried about not being able to set up too many hazards. But yeah, regardless, super excited to use Lycanroc. I think it's going to be an absolute demon for us, and people really need to be put on notice about it. Next up, we're grabbing one of the best fairy switch-ins in the game in Muck. This thing is phenomenal. With most fairy types being special, this thing gets amazing is amazing on the special defensive side. With 105 HP and 100 special defense, if I remember correctly. You got access to knockoff. Getting things like Poison Touch is amazing. And the natural, just poison, getting gunk shots and poison jabs and things like that is phenomenal. I believe it gets things like Ice Punch and fighting coverage as well. It gets like Brick Break and stuff. So it's definitely nothing to scoff at. It's very solid. I kind of wish it got like Earthquake or something. That'd be kind of cool. But it doesn't. So, that's something we're going to have to deal with. But regardless, super excited to use this thing. I used it in DDL Season 2, which I didn't record, unfortunately. But definitely enjoyed using it there. I felt it was very, very good for fairies. And I'm super excited to use it again. For like 3 or 4 points, I think it's a very solid fairy switch-in. Next up, we're grabbing Electros, which I don't remember if this was in the original Gen 9 decks, but regardless, for DLC, this thing's really solid. It's a nice, bulky electric. I haven't used Electros before, I don't think, but this thing is phenomenal. Getting access to both U-turn and Volt Switch. Being a coil sweeper is really nice, because I can run some shenanigans there. It gets a ton of coverage, and with, it's likely to be Assault Vested. It's a very good Assault Vest user, which we have a couple of those now. With this, we have a good Assault Vest user in Ursaluna. Urshifu can be Assault Vested as well. We have some really solid options for Assault Vest to take in more special hits, so the fall doesn't completely go to Slowking and Muck, which aren't always going to be able to come. So getting a ton of Mons that can put on Assault Vest to take care of that is definitely nice. But yeah, I love Electros. This thing hits super, super hard. Could be, like I said, Could be either an Assault Vest user, or it could be a Coil Sweeper. So definitely super excited to use it, and we're going to see what we're able to do with it this season. Next up, we're going to be grabbing Berserker, which I never thought I'd say that sentence. I never thought I'd say I'm grabbing Berserker. And we're making it Terra Captain this season. Steel, Fighting, and Fairy. Definitely, I think at least 2 of those, like Terra Steel. Terra Steel on this thing is insane. Terra Steel, Steely Spirit, Iron Heads with like a Choice Band or a Life Orb or whatever it is, just has no switch-ins whatsoever. And this thing will also get Terra Fighting Close Combats, which hits, you know, super hard, and then being able to break down through fighting types with Terra Fairy, Terra Blast is amazing. This thing hits really hard, and I'm super excited to use it. It's a really cool like Trick Room user to pair with like Ursaluna and Slowking. So we can definitely use some Trick Room option here. We're not like a Trick Room team, but we have options if we wanted to do that. But yeah, super excited to use Berserker. This thing hits super hard. It gets access to Stealth Rocks as well, so it is another Stealth Rock user. This thing did get knockoff in the DLC, which is great. A lot of mods got knockoff back, which I think is great, because not having knockoff apart from like 7 mods in regular Paldea decks was definitely frustrating, because you weren't able to like knock off Rocky Helmets or Leftovers and things like that, and now we are. Super excited to use Berserker. Love this mon. I've always thought it was kind of a funny mon, not necessarily the best, but for just, I think I paid like 2 points in proper like tiering for it, and then I paid 5 Terra points for it. You get 20 Terra points to, you know, for your Terra Captains. You get 2 to 3, and with Lycanroc and Berserker, I feel like those are very solid. I was very close to drafting Probopass over Berserker. I really considered it, but I think the offensive pressure that Berserker presents, that's some good alliteration for you. The offensive pressure that Berserker presents is going to be, you know, enough for us. I think those Steely Spirit boosted Iron Heads with the Terra Steel, with a Choice Band, there's not going to be a whole lot that switches into it. I've looked at some calcs and some matchups ahead of time, and this thing has some crazy matchups potentially. But yeah, super excited to use it, and we're going to see what it does for us this season. And last but certainly not least, we're grabbing Scyther. Now, Scyther is another defogger, gets access to, you know, being able to hold that Eviolite or the heavy-duty boots is phenomenal. This thing, it is very solid. It gets 105 speed, I believe the same in attack. Getting access to Technician, gets access to U-Turn, gets things like Acrobatics and Aerial Ace. I believe it does get access to like Bug Bite and things like that for some Technician bug moves. And I believe it gets like some fighting coverage, like Close Combat or Superpower or something. So it's definitely very solid. Definitely super excited to use it. Scyther at 105 speed is pretty solid for, like, I think I paid 6 points for it. It's a very solid mon, and I'm really excited to use it. But yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think of our roster this season. I'm super excited. I think we have a great roster ahead of us. And I'm really excited to see what we do this season. Let me go ahead and let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you guys in week 1. Peace out.